Hello, I'm the Irresolute Cartographer, and this is a review of Episode 3 of the Fallout TV show. As with the first two videos in this series, I intend to cover each of the sections of the episode in turn, giving a broad strokes plot summary, a listing of the good, the confusing, and the bad aspects of each section. I'll also detail anything I think is lore-breaking and anything that has been added to the lore of the universe. Lastly, I'll list the character details given in each section for each character. That being said, let's get started. Cooper Howard, a Western movie star, struggles to film a scene as he disagrees with the moral alignment of his character. He then discusses changes in the film industry with his director. After this, he meets his wife and daughter at the craft service table before heading off to change for a photo shoot. On to the good aspects. First, this scene is very well placed, coming shortly after the shootout in Philly to show us how much Cooper Howard has changed. Not only have his physical features been altered over the centuries, but his moral values have shifted drastically. Second, the conversation between Cooper and his director Emil shows the Red Scare taking place at the time and the effect that fear had upon the filmmaking industry and the culture it created. Third, the happiness we see in the Howard family here is in dramatic contrast to how we saw the situation in the first scene of the first episode. This provides a good base point from which we can watch the evolution of their relationships to the day of the bombs. On to the confusing aspects. Again, these are things I had questions about that I hope to see addressed in future seasons. Just one thing here, when is this exactly? We obviously know when the first scene of the first episode took place, as the bombs dropping served as a datum. That scene is titled The End, while this one was titled The Beginning. There are clues to the timeline in later episodes, but nothing definitive. This scene really didn't have anything I didn't like nor anything new lore-wise, so let's move on to what we learn about the characters here. First of all, we learn that Cooper Howard likes to play a hero, not an anti-hero. He wants to arrest the criminal, not execute him. Along with this, he appears to be an anti-communist, as he decries the fact that one of his favorite writers, Cadillac Bob, was a communist, instead of decrying the fact that he was fired for being one. We also see that Cooper loves his wife and daughter, and defers to his wife when asked for permission by his daughter. Second, we see that Barb Howard loves her husband and daughter. Lastly, we learn that Janie Howard likely spends a lot of time with her parents. On to Section 2. The Ghoul and CX-404 find the beheaded corpse of Dr. Siggy Wilzig. As the Ghoul starts to cough, he pulls an inhaler and a vial of yellow liquid out of his bag and uses it. With his cough halted, the Ghoul leads CX-404 away on a hunt for Wilzig's head. On to the good aspects. First, as with the last time we saw this location, I really enjoyed the scenery of this area. Second, the appearance of the props in this scene is great. Third, I appreciate that the Ghoul isn't thrown by the death and dismemberment of his target. Instead, he recognizes that something about Dr. Wilzig's head was the purpose of the bounty, and that becomes his target. On to the confusing aspects. What is this chemical the Ghoul inhales here? Whatever it is, it shows up multiple times throughout the rest of the show. Despite getting some clues as to its purpose, it's never laid out what it is. We'll talk more about this in future scenes. Just as with the first scene, this scene didn't really have anything I didn't like, nor anything new lore-wise, so let's move on to what we learn about the characters here. The Ghoul has been thoroughly desensitized to the madness of the wasteland over the past 2 centuries. Finding the body without the head isn't disgusting to him, it's an inconvenience. As for CX-404, she appears to recognize the Ghoul as something of a new master, given that she follows him even when she has found the body of her previous master. On to Section 3. Lucy walks across the wasteland with Dr. Siggy Wilzig's head. As she settles down for the night, she investigates the head and is given an electrical shock by the tech hidden in Wilzig's neck. Not wanting to lose the head, she shoves a tracker tied to her Pip-Boy up one of the nostrils. On to the good aspects. First, the use of the Inkspot song Maybe was an excellent choice for this scene. Not only has it been a part of the Fallout universe since the first Fallout game, but its lyrics about longing and being alone are perfect for this situation. Second, Lucy continues to grow as a person, responding to lessons learned, and she also considers counters to potential future issues that could arise. Third, the scenery is great. In particular, I really liked the vista where she reached the top of the rise and saw a vast breadth of wasteland ahead of her. The look on her face was perfect. Fourth, I thoroughly enjoyed the depiction of Yum Yum deviled eggs, a preserved food found in game. The concept of preserved deviled eggs is hilarious, and the presentation in the box where they all sit on display ready to eat was great. Lastly, I really enjoyed the imagery of the tracking utility, including the fact that she was able to choose the icon of the object tracked, and she picked an image of the head of Vault Boy. There wasn't anything that confused me, but I do have one minor nitpick here. When Lucy attempted to investigate Wilzig's head, wondering why she was carrying it to Moldaver, the tech within shocked her. While this was an effective way to keep her from investigating it further, it only did that for the purposes of advancing the plot in the desired direction. If the device were prone to shocking the flesh of those who touched it, Wilzig would have constantly been getting shocked. I think it would have been better for her to have given the head a once-over and then shrugged before continuing with the plan of tracking it. On to the new lore here. It appears that whatever model of Pip-Boy Lucy has, it has a tracking device and a tracking utility. While in-game we've gotten navigation capabilities and the ability to track quest objectives, we've never seen this exact capability. With that said, let's move on to what we learn about Lucy here. Lucy shows that she is learning from her experiences in the wasteland when she shields her campfire from sight. Along with this, she's thinking ahead, planning for a potential eventuality when she loses control of the head. Beyond this, it's clear that after a lifetime with her friends and neighbors in Vault 33, she's lonely. Lastly, she's clearly smitten with Maximus. On to Section 4. Maximus works to restore his power armor to full working order after his defeat by the Ghoul. The Brotherhood calls Knight Titus, and Maximus imitates his former master. Despite his best efforts to prevent it, the Brotherhood begins the process of deploying a new squire. While in town getting a broken part restored, scavengers descend upon his armor. After a brutal fight, Maximus reclaims his armor just in time to see his former antagonizer Thaddeus being dropped off in Philly. Maximus takes on Thaddeus as his new squire, and together they head into the wasteland tracking Dr. Wilzig. On to the good aspects. First, I enjoyed watching Maximus persevere against problem after problem and do everything he had to come out on top. First selling a tooth to fix his armor, then taking on 5 men to recover his armor, then putting that armor on while bruised and battered. Second, the constant hazing Maximus received in the Brotherhood turned out to be the perfect training to deal with this exact scenario. On to the confusing. First, there's a part of the timeline in the aftermath of the shootout in Philly that's confusing me a little here. Lucy set out first as the fight was coming to a close. She and Wilzig reached the satellite where he took his own life, and she took his head. She walked on until evening and stopped for the night. The Ghoul followed, seemingly setting out from Philly after darkness fell or as the sun rose. He reached the satellite and found Wilzig's body before following on. Maximus and Thaddeus left Philly third and, as we'll soon see, tracked the Ghoul to the satellite. That timeline is fairly simple, and it seems to me that the Ghoul stayed the night in Maude June's before setting out with CX-404 in the morning. The real question is, what did Maximus do that night? When we saw him last, he was lying face first in muddy urine. This section started out with him winching his armor upright. We just saw how dangerous Philly was. If he didn't set out until the next day after the Ghoul, how did he manage to keep his armor safe overnight? I'm not expecting an answer in later seasons. Second, for a while, I was thinking that this fight was unnecessary. In the last episode, Maximus showed himself to be a good shot when he killed the Yao Guai attacking Knight Titus. I was wondering why he didn't bring that pistol with him, as it would have made this situation a cinch. This then made me question why he didn't bring it to Philly to use on the Ghoul, and that's when I remembered that he did indeed have a pistol with him in Philly and lost it in the fight. He didn't bring his old sidearm with him because he didn't have room, and was in no condition to go back into town to search for the pistol he did bring, especially if the Ghoul was still there at the time. I do think that he's smart enough to have packed both pistols if he could have, so I have to assume that he was out of room. A later episode shows that he has compartments with other gear, so it must have been a question of capacity, and the second sidearm didn't make the cut. I didn't see anything here I didn't like, nor did I see anything lore-breaking, so let's move on to new lore. First, it appears that this new incarnation of the Brotherhood considers squires to be little more than cannon fodder. Compare Officer Shortsight's response to word that Maximus has died with Knight Shin's reaction to the death of Initiate Norland, or the response of Lion's Pride to the death of Initiate Redden. Second, as mentioned in the first episode review, the use of the term Lord by squires to refer to their knights is new to the Brotherhood. It was not the case in 2287, but now in 2296 it appears not only to be the norm in the Brotherhood, but has become common knowledge outside the organization too, given the lead scavenger's use of "Milord" as an epithet. With that said, let's move on to what we learn about the characters here. In this section, Maximus shows himself to be resourceful when he's willing to sell a tooth to fix his armor. Along with this, he's tough and proficient in melee combat when he fights 5 men to recover his armor. Furthermore, he shows himself to be merciful when he spares Thaddeus' life. Not only was Thaddeus the cause of his hazing back at the base, but he could also discover Maximus' identity, potentially leading to Maximus being executed. We also learn that Thaddeus is thoroughly respectful of knights. On to Section 5. Lucy McLean continues her trek with the head of Dr. Wilzig and comes upon a river. She stops to feed a fawn, but is interrupted when that fawn is dragged into the water, after which Lucy herself is attacked. Though she shoots the monster attacking her, it takes Wilzig's head and swims away. As she prepares to jump into the river and swim after the monster, she is confronted by the ghoul and CX-404. He hits Lucy with his gun and searches her bag before she tells him she lost the head. Seeing a pile of poop nearby, the ghoul realizes that a gulper has taken the head. On to the good aspects. First, this scene opens on a Sunset Sarsaparilla truck. Sunset Sarsaparilla is a beverage found mostly on the West Coast and was quite prominent in Fallout New Vegas. Second, the way the gulper is presented here is well done, showing little bits of the beast here and there without revealing the whole. Third, Lucy's reaction to seeing a river running through forested hills for the first time is great, as is her brief interaction with the deer. On to the confusing. The setting here doesn't seem to be a real place. I've been trying to nail down locations since the first episode and I've found a few spots, but this one is uniquely odd. The best indication we have as to the location is the sign saying Exit 12A Hollywood Boulevard. The problem with this is that there's only one road that crosses Hollywood Boulevard that has exits, and that's US 101. The exit from US 101 to Hollywood Boulevard, both north and south, is 8B. Exit 12A on US 101 is a few miles northwest of that exit, and is practically on the other side of the Santa Monica Mountains, and would not be on track to get Lucy to her destination, although I should note that that destination has not yet been detailed. As for the river here, it's also a bit confusing. There is a body of water between exit 8B and 12A, the Hollywood Reservoir, but it's not got buildings in it and is held up by a dam. Were that water to rise from the reservoir to cover nearby buildings, the entire LA basin would be flooded. I didn't see anything here I didn't like, so let's move on to the lore. First, the fawn Lucy meets here is either new lore or lore breaking. The closest thing we've seen to deer in the Fallout universe are radstag, which are two-headed like Brahmin, the two-headed cows. Either this is a lore-breaking version of the radstag, or we're looking at a different species altogether. I could see it either way. Second, it appears that gulper-like creatures are a nationwide phenomenon, although they appear to be distinct species. The first time we met gulpers in the Fallout universe was in Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC, where gulpers are one of the monsters that stalk the community of Far Harbor on Maine's Atlantic coast. They're also a creature that resides in Appalachia's Maya region in Fallout 76. We'll learn more about LA gulpers in a later episode. Third, from this, we know that there's a river flowing somewhere in the LA area surrounded by greenery. With that said, let's move on to what we learn about the characters here. Lucy shows herself to be a lover of nature, in awe of the foliage and the river. Her response to seeing a deer for the first time is an attempt to feed it. She also shows that she can think on her feet, so to speak. While many would simply struggle or try to gain their footing, Lucy reloads her gun and fires a tranq at the gulper dragging her, allowing her to get away. Lastly, it's reinforced that she is desperately driven to get her father back. She was about to jump into a radioactive river, chasing a monster that could drag her without issue. She also will lie about things that could save her life if she told the truth, if the reason she is lying is to rescue her father. From these things, we also know that her survival instincts need some work. On the other hand, the ghoul is fairly ruthless when it comes to interrogations, but he knows when to pull his punches, and he's knowledgeable about the wildlife of the wasteland. He knows gulper poop when he sees it. Lastly, CX-404 doesn't like to see people hurt. She shows this by whimpering when Lucy's hit by the ghoul. On to Section 6. The Vault Council meets to discuss the punishment for Norm and Chet for their roles in the escape of Lucy McLean. Chet loses his job as the gatekeeper, while Norm is reassigned to feeding the raider prisoners. On to the good aspects. First, I really enjoyed how Norm's lack of conformity to the Vault's culture made it nearly impossible to punish him. Second, the depiction of the raiders' behavior was perfectly accurate to the games. On to the confusing. There is a confusing part to this section, but it will not yet reveal itself until a scene later in this episode, so we'll talk about it then. I didn't see anything I didn't like here, so let's move on to the lore. Vault 33's culture is shown off here, and that the punishments doled out involve demotions. A dweller's job is a big part of who they are, and for most of them, these demotions are a profoundly serious matter. With that said, let's move on to what we learn about the characters here. Chet is utterly devastated by the loss of his job. I believe that this is because he is the ideal Vault 33 dweller, aside from his failure to follow orders and keep the vault closed. The centrality of work to his life appears to have been the goal of Vault 33's culture. On the other hand, Norm has generally been apathetic throughout his adult life. He has friends and family that he cares about, but vault life has been unengaging. This was shown to an extent in the past when he would rather play Atomic Command alone than engage with his family's book club. But it was really hit home with a recitation of his job record. Nothing he's done has been interesting to him. Along with this, Norm is clearly enraged about the Dwellers having chosen to capture the Raiders rather than kill them. Lastly, he isn't impressed with the leadership shown by the Council and views them with disdain. On to Section 7. After playing a revenge prank on Thaddeus, Maximus and Thaddeus set off across the wasteland in search of Dr. Wilzig. When Maximus reveals that the ghoul is ahead of them chasing their target, Thaddeus pulls out a radiation tracker and the two of them follow it to the beheaded corpse of Dr. Wilzig. Realizing that the head is the important part of Wilzig, they follow the footprints leading away from the doctor's body. On to the good aspects. The comedic tone of this section was amazing. Maximus getting a little more revenge on Thaddeus, Thaddeus' sycophantic desire to please Knight Titus, and the little chuckle Maximus gives when Thaddeus falls. The way that Thaddeus holds the headshot of Dr. Wilzig up to his headless corpse and declares with certainty that it's his body. All amazing. On to the confusing. With this section, we see again that Philly is north of LAX, but it seems to be far north of LAX. This adds to the confusion as to why they travel from north to south past LAX as they laid out in the last episode's review. There was something here that I didn't think was very realistic, but it appears to be part of the lore now, so let's talk about it. The tracker that Thaddeus uses to track the ghoul seems highly unrealistic. I'm not talking about the ability to detect radiation or even specific isotopes, but the ability to track a radioactive individual hours after they passed through an already radioactive area? That seems too good to be true. That said, the tech worked, so I'm going to put it off as a piece of miracle tech from the Fallout universe. It's hardly the craziest piece of science fiction here. With that said, let's move on to what we learn about the characters here. Maximus is getting a little more revenge on Thaddeus here, probably going a little further than he should, but luckily Thaddeus doesn't get seriously injured. Along with this, though he has a logical mind when he knows immediately that Dr. Wilzig's head is the important thing, he does show himself to have had less training than Thaddeus, or was at least less engaged with the training than Thaddeus was. For his part, Thaddeus shows himself to be sycophantic when it comes to his admiration of knights. Along with this, he hates mutants and appears to be able to apply learned concepts rapidly. On to Section 8. Having realized that a Gulper swallowed the head of his target, the ghoul uses Lucy McLean as live bait. When the Gulper takes the bait, not only does the ghoul fail to kill it, but his medicine is destroyed by Lucy in an attempt to save herself from the beast. Without having recovered the head, the ghoul has to find more medicine, and takes Lucy with him while leaving CX-404 by the water's edge hunting for her master. On to the good. First, I really liked Lucy's dialogue here, as though she's started to adapt to the wasteland, she still has so much Vault Dweller in her. From the statement of "torture is wrong" to her perceived torturer, to explaining the golden rule to the ghoul, it was all good. Second, I thoroughly enjoyed the entire process of the ghoul explaining himself to Lucy, telling her that he wasn't torturing her because torture doesn't work. Third, the full reveal of the Gulper's appearance and the terrifying array of human fingers working to pull food into the mouth is so creepy and well done. Lastly on this point, it was while watching this scene that I realized that the bag the ghoul carries is a saddlebag. Though I couldn't confirm that this was originally on his horse Sugarfoot, it's a neat little detail. On to the confusing. The radiation meter on Lucy's Pip-Boy is a bit odd. This meter, which shows up from time to time in the show, runs from 0 to 1000 rads. In-game, it usually corresponds to the current radiation exposure of the player character. In the show, the meter seems to perform more as a typical Geiger counter, reading ambient radiation. When Lucy is pulled from the river, her Pip-Boy reads just over 800 rads, the same exact reading that she got off her husband in the first episode. In-game, ambient radiation isn't given on this meter, and further is given in rads per second, and rarely rises above the low double digits. I'm confused as to how the meter in the show is supposed to be read. I have to assume it has a toggleable option, and it either shows ambient radiation as a single-digit number or personal radiation exposure as the times 100 number, but I really don't know if that's what they were going for. There wasn't anything here that I didn't like, nor anything lore-breaking, so let's move on to new lore. First, it seems that at some point since the bombs, this river has gotten to where it gets traffic. The fact that there's a dock with a working crane on it indicates that cargo is on and offloaded here. Second, it appears that the hands of the Gulper are their weak point. The ghoul repeatedly stabbing the face of the beast did nothing, while one chomp from a dog to the hand was too much for it. Along with this, the ghoul tells us that Gulpers digest slowly. On to character traits. Lucy here proves herself once again to be single-mindedly driven to save her father. Even when being dragged by the neck, she still concerns herself with her father's salvation. The ghoul reveals that he regularly read newspapers in the time before the bombs, and that he needs those little vials of yellow fluid more than he needs to complete this bounty. CX-404 shows herself to be brave here by attacking a monster like a Glipper. On to Section 9. Maximus and Thaddeus stop for a moment on their journey and talk about Thaddeus's perceptions of the recently deceased Maximus. On to the good. I'm glad that we got an explanation as to why Thaddeus hazed Maximus, and effectively that Maximus got an apology from his former bully, even if Thaddeus didn't know to whom he was talking. This rounded out Thaddeus more as a character. On to the confusing. If power armor suits have water bags to keep the knights hydrated, does that mean they also have catheters, or do the knights have to stop to pee? There wasn't anything I didn't like here, so let's move on to lore breaking. Once again, we're seeing something here that the power armor has never done in the past when the helmet opens in the back. I went back to check the T-60 in Fallout 4 and 76, and neither has the openable hatch in the back of the head. Beyond this, look how thin the metal is. It's something like 10 or 12 gauge, which is to say an eighth or a tenth of an inch thick. I have to think that this is the consequence of the helmet being a prop rather than the real lore, as that would have some real trouble stopping bullets. On to new lore. First, T-60 power armor suits have water reservoirs so the pilots can drink. Though we haven't seen this before, it makes sense. As mentioned in the confusing section, I do wonder if they can also pee in their suits or if they have to stop. I would bet on the former. Second, fly farms. If this is something that has popped up before, I haven't seen it. I'm not sure how much sense the concept makes in terms of resources in, resources out. The farmers have to feed crappers, who then produce poop to feed flies, so that those flies can be processed into protein. The concept makes sense from an A to B to C sort of logic, but I have to wonder how they can afford to feed crappers enough to get fat and still get enough protein off the back end for this all to make sense. On the same point, it's great that Thaddeus is fat at his size. This gives you a real sense of how fit most Brotherhood members are. On to character building. In this section, we saw Maximus, to an extent, seemingly letting Thaddeus off the hook for the hazing. We also learned more about Thaddeus, and that he grew up on a fly farm and is fat by Brotherhood standards. Beyond this, he was part of the Brotherhood before Maximus, and was the target of the hazing in those days. Along with this, he feels bad for having hazed Maximus, as Maximus never got out of the hazing phase like he did. On to Section 10. At a meeting in Vault 33, the Dwellers attempt to determine what they're going to do with the raiders they captured. While many Dwellers discuss what to teach them, Norm suggests executing them. At the end of the meeting, it's announced that the Vault's water chip is broken, and they only have weeks of water left. On to the good. I thoroughly enjoyed this scene. The platitudes, the ridiculous suggestions of teaching the raiders Shakespeare, philosophy, and calculus. Beyond that, Reg and Woody were both clearly jockeying for position and made fools of themselves, while Betty emerged as the clear leader by staying off to the side and only rising once the situation turned serious. I enjoyed the appearance of the water chip. It wasn't exactly as it appeared in Fallout 1, but it was fairly good. It was also great to see Norm subtly poking at the power struggle between Reg and Woody, and Stephanie providing Norm with moral support. On to the confusing. How did they get the raiders into the reading room? More than that, how did they prepare the reading room to serve as a prison? When we last saw the room, the interior of the window frames had expanded metal on them. The door had a slot for food, a wired glass window, and couldn't be opened from the inside. Cabinets along the walls are also protected with wired glass. Along with this, the room is prepared with bunks and must have bathroom access. If this was in fact the reading room before, why is it perfectly set up as a prison? And if it wasn't, how'd they fix it up while holding the raider prisoners? The only way that this makes any sense is that the room was always reinforced so that it could serve as a detention area when necessary. I have trouble seeing any other way they could have held the raider prisoners long enough to get the room prepared for them, especially the specialty door. There wasn't anything here that I didn't like, nor did I see anything lore breaking, so let's move on to new lore. It appears that during the Triennial Trade Raid of 2296, the water chip for Vault 33 was destroyed, an act that put the Vault into a precarious situation, similar to the situation that Vault 13 suffered in 2161. On to new character aspects. Norm Maclean shows that he both wants the prisoners dead and has little, if any, respect for the Council. Stephanie Harper clearly wants the prisoners dead for what they did to her husband. Woody Thomas and Reg McPhee both clearly want to be Overseer, but bungled this meeting terribly and look like fools. Betty Pearson was, in fact, the only counselor to look competent throughout the proceedings. On to section 11. Maximus and Thaddeus come across the riverbank where Lucy lost the head of Dr. Wilzig. The Gulper emerges and attempts to eat Thaddeus. Maximus battles the monster and manages to kill it, rescuing Thaddeus and recovering the head of Dr. Wilzig. On to the good. First, I enjoyed seeing Thaddeus and Maximus working together here. Unfortunately, Thaddeus believed that he was helping Knight Titus, but it's already a better relationship compared with when Maximus was contemplating crushing Thaddeus' skull when they met. Second, I enjoyed the direct comparison of the reactions of the false Knight Maximus and the real Knight Titus to the situation of both the knight and squire being in danger. It showed the superiority of Maximus to Titus. Titus ran for his life, hoping the Yao Guai would go for his squire instead of him, while Maximus ran for Thaddeus' life, hoping to save him from the Gulper. There wasn't anything confusing here, so let's move on to the bad. The Gulper seems to have selectively slow digestion. We see Dr. Wilzig's head basically intact, but the thing it just ate before this, the fawn that Lucy met, is down to bone. Either this is a different deer skull, or Wilzig's head was incredibly lucky to be undigested. I didn't see anything lore-breaking here, nor any new lore, so let's move on to new character aspects. Maximus and Thaddeus both show themselves to be both brave and a bit stupid. The fact that they waded into the river rather than try to find some way around is pretty dumb. In terms of bravery, Thaddeus could have run, leaving Maximus to fend for himself. Instead, he fired on the Gulper. He probably should have fired more shots, but this act distracted the beast and saved Maximus. Then Maximus proved his bravery by charging into battle and giving it everything he could to pull Thaddeus free. Besides the squires, CX-404 shows that she misses Wilzig. On to section 12. The ghoul escorts Lucy across the wasteland, depriving her of water and shooting the face off a Vault Boy on a Vault-Tec billboard. On to the good. The depiction of the quality of the water found in the wasteland is excellent. It looks absolutely disgusting. This was a pretty short scene and I didn't see anything I didn't understand, didn't like, or anything lore related, so let's move on to characteristics. The ghoul is fairly sadistic here. It's clear that Lucy is dehydrated, but he refuses to give her water, tipping it into the dirt rather than giving her any. Along with this, he hates the image of Vault Boy. Lucy, on the other hand, gets comfort from Vault-Tec imagery. On to the last section, section 13. Cooper Howard is the star of a Vault-Tec ad campaign on the behalf of his wife. In the photoshoot, he gives a thumbs up and becomes a Vault-Tec icon. On to the good. First, as before, the contrast between Cooper Howard and the ghoul that he becomes is stark here. Setting this scene right after when he denies water to a woman he's holding captive is great. Second, I enjoyed that we got the first insight into Barb's relationship with her husband. She gets him to do this advertisement for her company, lending his star power to her work, but tells the lower level execs of the photoshoot to lie to Cooper when he asks if the vault suits are radiation proof. On to the confusing. Where did Janie Howard go? Just before this chronologically, they were walking down to his trailer to change, and immediately after this, she's gone. I assume she's off playing with some other kids or something like that. I just realized she was gone when going between the scenes. I didn't see anything I didn't like, so let's move on to the lore. The biggest thing to come out of this scene is that Cooper Howard was the first version of Vault-Tec's iconic Vault Boy. The image of him smiling and giving a thumbs up became the centerpiece of their ads. In the ending credits of this episode, there's a Vault-Tec billboard which has the top layer peeling away. Behind the half-destroyed Vault Boy, we see a previous version of the ad in which Cooper Howard was clearly in the spotlight. I believe that if we combine the photoshoot, the billboard, and the first scene of the first episode, we can see how Cooper Howard was the spokesman for Vault-Tec, serving as a centerpiece of their ad campaign. While it's clear that he's not a communist, we also know that at some point he was outed as such. In the aftermath of this disgrace, he was replaced in Vault-Tec's ads by Vault Boy. When he shot the face off the Vault Boy on the billboard, it was probably just as much a tiny act of revenge on Vault-Tec as much as it was to bother Lucy. With that said, let's move on to character traits. At this time, Cooper Howard trusted his wife, believed in Vault-Tec's mission, and became the first high-profile spokesman for the Vault-Tec Corporation. Cooper's wife, Barb Howard, was willing to lie to her husband regarding the radiation-proof vault suits, and was proud to see him take part in the ad campaign. Alright, that should do it for episode 3. Follow me on X for lore video announcements at Gaming with Maps. My Discord is open to the public, there's a link in the channel's banner. I stream every Friday evening on YouTube, come check it out if you're interested. If you appreciate what I do here and you want to support the channel financially, you can become a member on YouTube or a patron with Patreon. I want to thank my channel members and patrons Mesothelioma, 76 of Texas, Dark Malcontent, Real76, Dr. Orion, Samsung Smart Fridge, Night Spearhead, Ahotep, Despy, Electric Head, and Hero Cunning for their support. I also want to thank Dark Malcontent for helping with this video's script. This has been the Irresolute Cartographer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.